I was always into martial arts. I love Bruce Lee like everyone else. I was able to see the first UFCs. I was like 6 years old at the time, so I was a big fan of pro wrestling. I kind of thought it was the same thing, and then once I saw the UFC, I realized it was a legitimate fight, kind of like Kickboxer and Jean-Claude Van Damme and all the movies that I enjoyed. So it was a whole different thing, and Ken Shamrock was the first big star, and I really gravitated toward him. But at the same time, I wanted to know what Royce Gracie was doing to beat Ken Shamrock. So, you know, that was the origin, I think, for a lot of people, and I was only 6 years old, but it stuck with me just as much. My brother-in-law was a jiu-jitsu black belt under Carlson Gracie Hey Diogo. So that was my first jiu-jitsu lesson. I was around 17 years old, and I'm still a white belt. So I've been training on and off, do no-gi in a garage currently. Training changed my life, and I don't train as much as I'd like to, so I'm not trying to say that like I'm a big practitioner or anything, but just the osmosis of being around martial artists and learning how they live their life and how it is a lifestyle. I plan to fight hopefully in my early 30s. It'll be a while because I need to learn jiu-jitsu first. I want to get belted under my brother-in-law's system. That's really important to me, and essentially I live in Southern California now, he's in Northern California, so I need to figure out the gap there. But I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys want to get in there and test themselves in an MMA fight because that's kind of part of the journey for it. So to me that's important, and I intend to do that someday, hopefully in the amateur circuit, hopefully representing jiu-jitsu, and just to see what it's like. If Pat Miletich told me that it's like became the new skydiving, but you have to realize that not every parachute opens, and I think that's a very apt thing. So if I got my ass kicked, then so be it. I just want to get in there and experience it, because when you roll, it's one thing, but if you're getting hit, that's a whole different thing. So I really enjoy rolling, and I want to see how far I could take the entire combat element. I've never had a fighter's instinct. I've never had any of that. I've always just appreciated it, and going through jiu-jitsu, the first time you do jiu-jitsu, you basically go, oh wow, what is this, and how come I could not do it like this guy? How could I learn what he knows and do it to him? How do I keep this from ever happening to me again? You don't ever want to get arm locked again once you get put in an arm bar or in a triangle choke. So to me, that's strictly what it is. I want to learn enough martial arts to know that I could hold my own in a one-on-one situation, and it's strictly that. I definitely don't want to get into sparring. I've been training in boxing, and I don't want to do sparring. Like I want to roll jiu-jitsu live. I want to learn wrestling and judo, because they're excellent martial arts, and that's all I care about is learning martial arts. So the live fight environment thing is strictly something I just want to do to test myself as a human being and an individual. I feel like you should always know what your body is capable of, and martial arts is, to me, the best way to do that. For myself, I always wanted to be a writer, and fighting was kind of the first place in which I gravitated toward, in the sense that I was spending so much time watching fighting, I wanted to continue to write. So I started writing about fighting, and I got onto ESPN very shortly after kind of making the decision to pursue fighting in any form. So I never looked back, and to me, I do it, I lose money, I sleep on couches. It's a very difficult thing to write for a living, let alone write about something new, something niche, like the sport of fighting. So to me, I just want people to know that I do this to help tell the stories of the people that you want to see, the fighters that you want to see, the martial artists that you want to hear their philosophy. To me, it's about spreading that kind of globalized philosophy of martial arts. It's a very important thing to be able to understand why a guy like Lyoto Machida could take his whole life, dedicate it to this one thing, and then perform the way he does against some of the most highly trained, respected, and feared athletes in the world. I believe that there's a difference between martial artists and fighters. I actually have it broken down into a few categories. This is kind of the thesis that I've developed in my time covering the sport. And that's that there's martial artists, competitors and athletes, fighters, and the more that you can check off those boxes, the better kind of person you'll be in terms of being a prize fighter and doing that, because I think you have to be a martial artist to have the mindset to do it, to keep it fresh, to want to do it every day. You have to be a fighter, when you have to bite down on your mouthpiece and get into the nitty-gritty in the trenches of a war, of a competitive element. You have to be a competitor. You have to have that mindset to want to win and be obsessed with that. And you have to be an athlete to kind of bolster all those other things. So the more boxes you can check off, I think the better it is for guys. And certain guys will tell you that they're not martial artists. Certain guys will tell you that they don't feel like they're fighters. They just feel like they're competitors. So I've definitely taken it in the field and talked to different MMA fighters and different kind of fighters. And a lot of people feel a bunch of different ways. It's completely individual. I think a lot of fighters do have past troubles, and it's just the nature of fighting. It's a fight or flight response. And if you're bullied as a child, you're basically overwhelmed, and you don't know how to respond. You don't know how to fight back necessarily, or you don't know how to run away. And either of those things could lead you to want to engage in the conflict. So if someone does bully you, then you do know how to handle that situation. And I think as you become more mature and as you get older, you realize that jail isn't probably the best option for you. Continuing down whatever road that stems from being in violent environments or engaging in violent activities. I think martial arts is an excellent way to channel that aggression and channel that energy into something positive. I think it's an important thing to show these guys for who they are. Like I said, overwhelmingly, I would say 99% of my experiences have been positive. These guys are very open, they're very honest, because they're humbled every day in the gym. Very few guys could carry an ego out and be negative people after going through that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying that you won't meet a fighter who's an asshole, but just for the most part, I think that advocating this as martial arts is a better route than advertising it as a blood sport with grudge matches and those kind of things that have characterized mixed martial arts. Because it's a sacrifice. Ultimately, it's a struggle and a sacrifice. And to me, those are the key components of these martial arts. These guys struggle and they sacrifice in order to become better. It's progress. Learning martial arts and learning that sense of right and wrong that you could get from a martial art is very important. Knowing when to defend yourself in a proper situation, knowing how to defend yourself so it's not guns and that kind of violence. I think those are all things that martial arts does. It faces you with the problem directly and you're asked to solve it. It's a very intelligent puzzle, and it's a puzzle that could, I think, you really teach people about justice, community, and all things that really have the power to influence change. If every child had a pair of boxing gloves, a pair of wrestling shoes, or a gi, then they would be in a better position to become productive members of society. And I hope that you guys enjoy my work, have enjoyed my work in the past, or will look forward to my work. That's pretty much it. You can hear me on Sirius Radio, SiriusXM 92, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard, 5 Eastern, and you can follow me on Twitter at Acosta is Legend, ACOSTA is Legend, and I have a podcast on MMAweekly.com. You can get it on iTunes. It's called Majority Draw Radio. Majority Draw Radio. I host it with Ryan McKinnell of MMAweekly.com.